Welcome to the MLFF podcast with your host, Commissioner B. Jack.
Welcome into episode 13. There are 2 weeks left until the playoffs. The final division games conclude this week, and next week is of course rivalry week. The trading deadline has also passed. In regards to the league rankings, I've noticed a discrepancy between Flea Flicker's overall league rank and the current playoff seeding. The overall league rank is what I've been referring to here in the podcast when discussing ranking changes, but it doesn't align with the current playoff seeding, which takes our tiebreakers into account. So moving forward, I'll be referring to the current playoff seeding as a player's rank to avoid any confusion, as the overall league rank is not an accurate reflection of a manager's playoff seeding. Division rank is unaffected. Only 2 teams on bye this week, the Cardinals and Panthers, but 6 teams on bye next week, so take a peek at your rosters and plan ahead. No more international games this year, and no more special kickoff times for the rest of the season, with the exception of some Saturday games on Christmas weekend. But these are all things that I cover here on the MLFF podcast, so be sure to smack that subscribe button and click the bell to be notified when the podcast drops on Wednesdays so you don't miss anything. Let's get to it. But also, JK, eat shit.
Let's go!
We'll do it live! Fuck it!
Ben defeats Rhino by 1 point in the narrowest margin of victory this week to give Rhino his second loss in a row. Ben's lineup was 97% optimal to Rhino's 79%, the least optimal lineup in Week 12. I said last week that Rhino had the benefit of Ben being in rebuild mode, but he let Ben put him into rebuild mode instead. Unfortunately, rebuild mode is only effective if you try to make moves before the trade deadline. But he's right, Miles Sanders strikes again with 33 points on Rhino's bench. Kyler finally got tired of Warzone and put up 31 in his return to football. With a healthy Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert returned to form. Mike White feeding Garrett Wilson 95 yards and 2 touchdowns is proof that Zach Wilson is trash, and Jonathan Taylor appears to be back to 100%. Robert Sapling sucked. The Hig Beaver didn't see a single target, and Najee suffered some sort of abdominal injury, and it's unclear if he's going to miss time. Rhino and Ben remain in 10th and 11th place, respectively. Gardo defeats Spencer by 6 points for his second win in a row.
He's heating up!
Gardo played a 92% optimal lineup to Spencer's 94%. Mahomes only threw for 1 touchdown. Cade Otton got the Hig Beaver treatment and also didn't see a single target, and John's cousin Eli suffered a potentially season-ending knee injury. But Christian Wattfather caught another touchdown, a 63-yarder, his 6th in the last 3 games. T. Higgins took a Shiggins on Tennessee. Backup running back Ezekiel Elliott finally outscored Tony Pollard, and the Chiefs' defense had the good fortune of playing against the Rams. Travis Etienne, however, suffered a foot injury early and left the game, but appears to be fine. Gardo traded for Donovan Peoples-Jones ahead of this matchup, sending DK Metcalf to Cody, who's not going to make the playoffs. Gardo now has a stack with Deshaun Watson ahead of his return from suspension this week. Gardo's 110 points was the fewest points scored in a win this week, but would have still beaten 4 other teams. Gardo climbs 2 spots to 3rd place and seizes control of the North Division from Spencer, who remains in 7th place. John defeats Timmy by 20 points for his second win in a row.
He's heating up!
With an optimal lineup.
Perfect.
Timmy's lineup was 90% optimal. Alvin Kamara lost 2 fumbles, Protestant McCaffrey was dealing with knee soreness, and Evan Engram was only targeted once, but he caught the fuck out of it. The Sun God feasted on Thanksgiving as the wide receiver won, and the Niners shut out the Saints, acquiring both of Kamara's aforementioned fumbles. Derek Carr threw 3 touchdowns but hampered his fantasy output with 2 interceptions. Keenan Allen's good when he plays, and the Packers found a way to utilize both A.J. Dildo and Aaron Jones. At this point, I assume when John plays his optimal lineup, it's because he forgot to check it. John falls into 5th place and Timmy remains in last place. Dantos defeats Jake by 35 points with an 81% optimal lineup to Jake's 84%. It's Dan's second win in a row.
He's heating up!
And Jake's second consecutive loss. Apparently, Dantos gives 0 fucks if Jake stays in the league next year. David Montgomery saw relevance again with Justin Fields out, and Josh Allen tore up the Lions on Thanksgiving. The Dolphins had 5 sacks, 2 interceptions, and forced and recovered a fumble for a touchdown against the Texans. But Josh Jacobs continued to solidify himself as the 2022 Fantasy MVP, torching the Seahawks through 4 quarters and then capping off his day with an 86-yard game-winning touchdown in overtime. Darnell Mooney shredded his ankle, though, and is done for the season. Stephon Diggs negated some of Josh Allen's points for Jake, and James Conner and Thick Chubb combined for 46 points, but A-Rod suffered some sort of rib injury and left the game shortly after halftime. The combined 285 points was the highest scoring game this week, good for 76th highest all time. Jake drops 3 spots to 6th place, while Dantos remains in 2nd place and leading the East Division. Brian defeats Jose by 46 points with an 82% optimal lineup. Jose played an 81% optimal lineup in his second consecutive loss. Damian Pierce got game scripted out on the Dolphins' second drive, and Dawson Knox is a real asshole. Samaje Perine had 20 on my bench, but I didn't pick him up to play him, only to block Mixon owner from using him against me. The Brown-Hurts stack was effective again, with Jalen becoming the QB1 on the week. Bullet Hole Brian destroyed Atlanta and has an awesome, gigantic fucking hat that he wore after the game. Aaron Jones had a good game for Jose, and that was it. Jose's 76 points was the fewest points scored this week, and our combined 188 points was the lowest scoring game this week, the 88th lowest all time. I jumped from 6th place to 4th, while Jose remains in 9th place. T-Bear defeats Cody by 58 points.
That's a lot of damage.
Good for blowout of the week, and the 59th largest blowout all time. Cody's loss snaps a 3-game win streak. Joe Burrow had a mediocre 20 points in Justin Fields' absence, and the Patriots stifled Dalvin Cook. Not Justin Jefferson, though, who is unguardable. Austin Eckler did most of his damage through the air, and Dalton Schultz was the tight end 1 this week with 2 touchdowns. Tua was pulled from the game early when the Dolphins went up 30-0 against Houston, and Devin Singletary had an okay day, but lost a lot of yardage to Josh Allen. Curtis Samuel ate shit, but Travis Kelce caught his NFL-leading 12th touchdown. Newly acquired DK Metcalf also produced 16.5 points on 15 targets. T-Bear's 167 points was the most points scored this week, the 55th most all-time. Cody remains in 8th place while T-Bear remains in 1st in leading the South Division. The playoff picture, with the Week 12 games shaking out, Gardo and John jump into the playoff picture, and Spencer and Cody fall out as a result. The wildcard round now projects to see Gardo in the 3 seed taking on Jake in the 6th, and myself in the 4 seed taking on John in the 5th. T-Bear is the first manager to clinch at least a wildcard berth, and he and Dantos remain in possession of the first-round byes. Timmy is still the only team eliminated from the playoffs, as Ben's win this week keeps him mathematically alive. Everybody else is still in the hunt, but Jose and Rhino have been eliminated from contention for a first-round bye. 9-3 T-Bear versus 2-10 Timmy in a South Divisional matchup. T-Bear is a 30-point favorite in the widest projected margin this week. He won their last matchup by 3 points back in Week 2. He's also 5-1 against Timmy all time. Timmy has the lowest projected score this week, and T-Bear has the highest projected score this week. Truly, David versus Goliath. 6-6 Cody versus 7-5 Brian in a West Divisional matchup. Cody's 6-3 against me and a 10-point favorite here. He lost our last meeting by 20 back in Week 2, but got a free pizza out of it. And in the highest combined scoring projection with potential division ramifications on the line, this is the
Game of the Week.
Cody's already started with his bullshit, but I'm approaching things differently this week. Sorry for your loss, Cody. 6-6 Spencer versus 5-7 Jose. Spencer's 7-1 against Jose. Hey, so am I. He's a 10-point favorite, and he won their last matchup by 3 points back in Week 10 of last year. Jose's riding a 2-game losing streak and risks being eliminated from the playoffs. 6-6 Jake versus 4-8 Ben in an East Divisional matchup. Jake's favored by 9 points, but that projection will widen once Jake subs out James Conner, who's on bye this week. They're 1-1 against each other, with Jake winning their last matchup by 36 points back in Week 2. Jake rides a 2-game losing streak, and I don't know if Ben has any fucks to give for Jake staying in the league next year. 5-7 Rhino versus 7-5 Gardo in a North Divisional matchup. Gardo's a 5-point underdog and 2-5 against Rhino. He lost their last meeting by 21 back in Week 2. All eyes will be on Deshaun Watson this week. 8-4 Dantos versus 7-5 John. Dantos is favored by 4.5 points in the narrowest projected margin on the week. He's 2-4 against John, but won their last matchup by 5 back in Week 10 of last season. Dantos clinches a playoff berth if he can pull out the win. The league payout standings. John continues to lead the blowout of the year, but T-Bear once again creeps within 1 of his lead for most blowouts. Dantos is now in sole possession of first place for the league pick'em payout, with Jose in second place 2 points behind him.
Look at this shit.
That is it. The playoffs start in Week 15. The trading deadline has passed. Do not forget to submit the weekly pick'em. A link to the form, as always, can be found in the commissioner's note and also as a pinned comment in the Discord server. Don't forget to like and subscribe, but also, just kidding, eat shit.
Thank you for listening to the MLFF podcast.
I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.